Our research has shown us that love in a lifetime of love has 3 separate phases. The first phase, psychologists, starting with Dorothy Tennant, have called limerence. This is the falling in love phase. Not a necessary phase, but it's a usual phase in our cultures where people choose their own lovers rather than an arranged relationship. Although in now studying arranged relationships like in India, Kuwait, and other places, it really appears that there's a lot more choice than people originally thought. And so there may be some similarities. They may have a limerence phase as well. So what we're suggesting is that there's a phase 2 that in which couples either build or fail to build trust, which is an answer to the question, are you there for me? And a third phase of love, that's the commitment phase, in which people either build loyalty or betrayal. So let's talk about these 3 phases of love in a lifetime. In the first phase, really, the question is, are you the one? And we know that only certain people can really trigger a physiology of limerence, of falling in love. And this cocktail of neurotransmitters and hormones is a very complex constellation. And I'll only take you through a couple of these things of what happens when we fall in love. Now, in my own life, when I moved to Seattle in 1986 after being divorced for about 7 years, and one of the reasons I moved there was that it was hard to find somebody my age in a college town at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. As soon as I got to Seattle, I started, this is before the internet, so I started answering ads in the personals columns. And I had about 3 months before school started. So I thought, I'm going to get to know the city of Seattle, and I'm going to date as many women as I can. So I dated 60 women that summer. And that's what I did, I made it like a job, And Julie was number 61. And none of the 60 really worked. I mean, it was hard to have a conversation with them. They didn't get my sense of humor, nothing really fit. And I remember sitting in a coffee shop called the Pony Espresso, and I was waiting for Julie. We had already had a phone conversation that lasted about 4 hours, and we were laughing together. So I knew she liked my sense of humor. I thought she was very funny, but I had no idea what she looked like. So before the internet, so I just had this little printed ad that I answered. And I was sitting there because I'm always early, and so I'm waiting, and this woman comes in, and I look at her and I think, I hope that's not her. Sure enough, it wasn't her. And then another woman came in, and I thought, well, maybe. I still hope that's not her. And it wasn't her. And then Julie came in, and I thought, I hope that's her. And it was her. Okay. Now, she had a very powerful effect on me, even within the first 45 minutes. And that weekend, I had a dream that involved her. Now, she was, in this dream, she was a tiger. But she was wearing, her markings had the tiger's markings had the same pattern as the dress she was wearing when I met her. So I mention this because only certain people can start this cascade of these hormones and neurotransmitters. It's a very selective process. People have to smell right, they have to taste right, they have to feel right when you hold them. All kinds of things happen. But look at all the different facets of falling in love. So DHEA really gives us this amphetamine kind of high. Pheromones create intoxication, the intoxication of falling in love. Oxytocin, which is the cuddle hormone, means that she has to feel right. And the bonding begins immediately. And so the other thing that oxytocin creates, in addition to bonding, is really poor judgment. Now, we secrete oxytocin right after an orgasm. So oxytocin is a very powerful hormone of bonding. In fact, you can inject oxytocin into the brain of a polygamous animal, and that animal will become monogamous. So it's the monogamy hormone as well. But, you can also spray oxytocin up the nose of people, and there's a study that was done in Switzerland where if you give subjects a lot of money, if you have a Swiss banker approach them, and they've either had saline sprayed up their nose or oxytocin, and the banker approaches them and says, he's a very well-dressed guy, and he says, if you give me your money, all the money you just earned, I will quadruple it in the next week, or I might decide to keep it for myself. It's up to me. If you've had oxytocin sprayed up your nose, you think that's a great deal. If you've had saline sprayed up your nose, you don't. So I call this the Bernie Madoff effect. Right? Then PEA, which is really the magnetic pull of limerence, spikes at ovulation and regulates approach and romance. It's the hormone of love at first sight. So when you fall in love at first sight, and that certainly happened to me when I first saw Julie, she was exceptional for me. Estrogen, and women are mostly secreting that, is about receptivity, the softness that we feel when we fall in love. Testosterone, the aggressive lust that we feel when we fall in love. Hot sex. Serotonin, which is about emotional sensitivity and low irritability, also an important hormone. Dopamine, which is, of course, the hormone of excitement, and really the hormone that something wonderful is about to happen. That's a really key aspect of dopamine. And progesterone, a calm, sedating kind of hormone. Prolactin, which is about nurturance. And vasopressin, which we guys secrete, which is about possessiveness. It's the monogamy molecule for males. So you can see that all these are like facets of a diamond of what limerence is about, this falling in love stage.